समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The American president, who otherwise reacts to every single thing, small or big, has been uncharacteristically silent on the India European Union deal. Called by the EU as the mother of all deals, it has been all smiles between both sides as Prime Minister Modi made a very sharp reference to what he called the weaponization of trade and minerals, a not so subtle swipe perhaps at Donald Trump. What might happen next between India and the US now that the India-EU trade deal has been agreed upon? Also, will Trump take his next war to Iran, or might he broker a deal yet? How will India respond? And should India remain far away from Trump's peace board? We'll be talking to veteran diplomat Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed in just a moment. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. These were the triumphant smiles as the India-European Union deal was forged. The EU had already called it the mother of all deals, and when it was finally officially signed, well, neither side could be blamed for their jubilation. After all, both sides have been united by at least one thing: Trump's tariff war. Though when quizzed about it, whether this was the unifying force, Minister Piyush Goyal said it was not even discussed. Even if India were to not look at this deal, which has been 20 years in the making through the lens of Trump and the friction between Delhi and Washington, the Europeans are certainly sending a message to Washington. The Europeans have literally bent over backwards to appease Trump. And yet, after Trump's threats to take Greenland, the Europeans realized that even being allies and sycophants is not quite enough to please Donald Trump. From the Indian perspective, the question is this: after this deal, what happens to the problems between Delhi and Washington? Also, India is yet to take a position on whether to join Trump's so-called peace board. Most of Europe has remained away from this peace board as well. And the balls are still up in the air as to what might happen in Iran next. Trump, uncharacteristically, has been silent, something he's not known for since the India-EU deal. To talk about all the implications of this deal and what might lie ahead, let me welcome to the program veteran diplomat and author, Strategic Affairs Mind, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed. Good to see you, Ambassador. Always a pleasure. Let me start by asking you, how significant is the deal between India and the European Union? And when Piyush Goyal says that we didn't even talk about Trump, he was asked a question: was Trump the great unifier? Do you believe that, or do you believe there's a very strong message to Trump by both India and the EU here?
Community is facing a unique challenge, and that is because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has created an extraordinary churn in world affairs. He's unpredictable. He's a megalomaniac. He's extremely unpredictable. He constantly changes his mind. He loves to be in the media. He loves to dominate world headlines. Therefore, he says and does things that are deliberately and mischievously provocative. Sometimes he goes forward with his deeds, and sometimes he does not. He loves to be ambivalent. He loves to keep people guessing. But he has done very serious damage already to the institutions that we have been taking for granted. Some of them were unequal, such as the Security Council, the WTO, etc. But at the end of the day, we were looking at reform, not the destruction of these institutions. The European Union is particularly vulnerable at this stage. They have, since 1945 onwards, the European countries have mortgaged their security to the United Nations and had very low defense budgets and were completely complacent in the fact that the Americans are actually at the border, and therefore they subordinated even their security and foreign policies to the Americans. Suddenly, Trump has given them a reality check, and they are absolutely terrified about what he might do next. They supported the Americans with regard to the Ukraine war, and they actually took a lot of sacrifice at that time in terms of energy supplies from Russia, but they got no goodwill in that regard. At the same time, he's even threatening the cohesion of NATO. From the Indian point of view, also we are under pressure. We too had taken the relationship for granted. We thought that Trump too would be the same as Trump one, but we did not realize that we are dealing with an extraordinarily transformed individual who is looking at legacy in terms of themes and issues that we had not expected, with an obvious crudity that again we had not expected from the American president.
So,
He fought a sad
you do believe that Trump was a factor in the timing of this deal going
is
through.
the principal factor in the signing of this agreement. Both sides, under pressure from Donald Trump, are publicly indicating that they are looking at alternatives and options. That some of the issues that had kept the agreement back, that our corporate sector is totally opposed to the free trade agreements. They are used to a market that protects them. Now they have been disciplined, and they have been forced to go forward with regard to these FTAs. And it's a good thing as far as India is concerned. We need competition rather than protecting our industry. So yes, I fully believe that Donald Trump is the very powerful shadow that has loomed over these discussions. And this is where the major countries of the world are looking to see how we can engage with each other and prepare ourselves for the post-Trump, post-US scenario, which is nowadays replete with extraordinary disorder.
Okay, so it's very interesting that you should say this. Let me, for contrast, play how Minister Piyush Goyal actually responded when he was asked whether Trump is the unifying factor. Take a look, and I'll come right back.
Thank you very much, Maria Tadeo for Euronews. Minister, you have signed this deal now, and both sides agree, which is rare these days, that this is a win-win situation for both. I was wondering, however, India and the European Union share the fact that both countries were really hit by tariffs, both the European Union and now India, to 50% from the Trump administration. So I wonder how much of a unifier beyond a win-win was the U.S. president?
I don't think we even discussed this at any point of time.
So I don't know that the minister on record could have said anything different. He said we didn't even discuss Trump. You have already said you believe he was the principal factor, the shadow looming large over these talks. Were you surprised by that response? Would you have expected a different response?
See, it is not anyone's business, certainly not at ministerial level, to speak about third parties who were not present at the discussions. We all, actually, let me be very clear. While India and the European Union may have this degree of bonhomie, please recall the European Union's principal efforts will be to mend their relations with the Americans. As far as India is concerned, we too would be committed to mending ties with the Americans. This is a plan B, to see that in case things spin completely out of hand. No one can predict what is going to happen. We cannot predict Donald Trump. We cannot predict what will happen after Donald Trump. We anticipate, and I would say to you very categorically, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, we are looking at disorder. Uncertainty,
5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years.
Disorder.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, because the general conventional wisdom is it's another 3 years, another 2.5 years. You are saying that the consequence of the Trump years is going to be 5 to 10 years of disorder. Can you explain
Absolutely. You see, it is very obvious. When a major world order that has been in place, if you look at the European domination of the world, it is for 200 years. The American domination of the world, even if you count from the First World War, you're looking already at a century. The unraveling of this scenario, of this order, and its replacement by various other forces and factors. This is going to be an extremely difficult, an extremely time consuming, an extremely uncertain initiative. None of us knows where we will go. Even academics are foxed. We have been talking glibly about a multipolar world order. What do we know about a multipolar world order? Who are the players in it? I'm going to say to you very categorically, we are looking at disorder. It's going to be a prolonged and painful experience. We need to be much more connected with what is happening in the rest of the world. We need to be engaged most robustly with regard to dialogue on serious issues. Our academics should start thinking about the medium and long term. Even our politicians, I would say, who only think of tomorrow as the long term, should start thinking seriously. We are looking at major changes, all of which will impinge on India's interests. We are looking at major changes in the way the world has been run so far, and we are looking at something quite new. I mean, we speak of Donald Trump. Look at his legacy. Do you think that the Democrats can defeat the Republicans in 3 years' time? There is a whole bunch of people who are coming up from the right wing, particularly they are moving to the far right. It's not going to be easy for the Democrats to overwhelm them. Therefore, I would say to you that you could even look at, even in electoral terms, at a very long and prolonged period of churn and disorder.
Let me ask you, therefore, about the only period we might be able to hazard a few guesses about, which is the immediate next few months. Given the fact that this deal has taken place between the European Union and India, does it have any impact on India and the American administration, or none? What do you make of the fact that Trump has been uncharacteristically silent? He's always so voluble. Now, it could be that he's distracted by domestic politics. He has hell of a challenge on his hand with, what is happening with the ICE agents. A number of his own voters not happy with what's happening. Channels that support him, not supporting him on the violence that's been inflicted on the streets of Minneapolis, for example. But even so, for Trump to be silent on something like this is very odd for him, wouldn't you say?
It is not. I want to say something again to you. We are not that important as far as the United States is concerned. Our strategic value in Washington is minimal. We are a sideshow. He speaks up robustly when China is in the picture or when Russia is in the picture. He cares for those entities. He was upset when the Canadians did this deal with China. He's upset that Starmer is going to China. He comes into play where there is China. He sees China as the principal rival. On the one hand, he would like to work with China. On the other hand, he sees China as a formidable opponent. And that is where he enjoys the play between the big boys. I'm sorry to say to you, because it will upset some of your listeners, India doesn't figure in this scenario. We are not a big deal. He needed us at one little point that we should have said that he's the cause of the end of Operation Sindoor and we support him for the Nobel Prize. That was our role as far as he's concerned. And we failed in that. He's moved on. India doesn't matter. He has irritated us and provoked us by cohabiting with the Pakistanis. But that is all. He doesn't care for Pakistan beyond a point either. He's in the big league. And he's going to work at the big league. All these others don't matter to him. Irritants like European Union and Canada do figure from time to time. But he wants to is like the emperor. Like when you have the board of peace. He's an emperor of the board of peace. He's got all these little men strutting around, pretending to be presidents and prime ministers, but everyone knows where the power is.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Board of Peace. Not so many people showed up for the Emperor's court. If the Emperor is the metaphor and the Board of Peace is his court, countries have been circumspect, including India. We've not said no, we've not said yes. Most of Europe, I think, except Hungary, have stayed away. You have, the countries that are there include a number of the Muslim countries who also issued a joint statement for reasons that I haven't fully understood, talking about joining this board. Can you talk a little bit about the world's responses and India's responses to this board of peace?
The board of peace is one of the most ridiculous developments. We would have laughed if it was not so tragic. The tragedy that has suffused the Palestinians is so horrendous that we cannot but lament what is happening. The board of peace is an absolute obnoxious joke. A president comes, bypasses the Security Council, bypasses the United Nations, has not said a word about genocide, has talked about a Riviera on the ruins of the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. I wouldn't be even surprised if he finally concedes and promotes the depopulation of Gaza and the depopulation of West Bank. I don't think he even cares for these people as human beings. So I would say, why did these countries, the few that went, why did they go? Some of them would argue to us, see, they were most of them authoritarian rulers. They would argue to us that we want to be in rather than out. We want to be able to influence him. Do remember that Donald Trump is susceptible to influence from Gulf countries. He loves the Gulf countries for only one reason: they are rich. They talk in billions and trillions of dollars. He was very happy with that kind of engagement, where large sums of money move into his personal coffers and the coffers of his friends and his relatives. That's what he wants. He loves them. And that is why they have his ear. They were, for example, all the literature that has come today indicates that possibly Gulf insistence on not going to war with Iran possibly played a role in Trump deciding to go down in terms of the tension. So in terms of doing anything for the Palestinians, doing anything for the people of Gaza, I am a deep-seated skeptic. Look at the scenario here. Whatever happens in that territory, from the Jordan River up to the Mediterranean, will be decided by only one man, and that is Netanyahu. To the extent anyone else supports him, well and good. There is no power in the United States to go against the wishes of Netanyahu. And Netanyahu has made it very clear what he believes in. He believes there will be no Palestinian state. He believes that Hamas should be disarmed. He believes that over a period of time, Palestinian aspirations and Palestinian identity should be erased. When he says that Israeli control from the Jordan to the Mediterranean, he's talking of the removal, the physical removal of the Palestinians and the removal of their identity and the removal of any mention of their aspiration. You think that Donald Trump or Vance or anyone else around them is going to oppose this? So what is this board of peace all about? It's a nonsensical development. We should be embarrassed about it. We should be ashamed about it.
Embarrassed and ashamed. So clearly you believe India must say no to it.
Oh, absolutely. That is not India's place. If India, see, every country in the world is guided by two values: the moral value, the moral compass, and the strategic interest. I believe both of moral compass and strategic interest demand that India publicly associate itself with Palestinian aspirations, demand that they be compensated for the harm done to them, that they be given back their dignity with a sovereign state. We must make that statement publicly. That is our demand. If we talk about the global south, this is the one issue that truly animates the global south. At one time, it was apartheid in South Africa. Today, it is apartheid in the West Asian and the West Bank and Gaza. That is where we should be. We should not be consorting with all these others who are lesser more. Look at the way in which Western media is talking about the killing of Iranians. 5,000 Iranians were killed in the protests, which were engineered largely from outside. 5,000 have been killed. What did this media do about the Palestinians? Did it even cover it once? 70,000 people were killed in front of their eyes, and their heart breaks for the Iranians, but not for the Palestinians. These are people who are totally amoral, and we should not associate ourselves with them.
You say that India must take a stronger public position on Palestine, and there's no question of even entertaining this invitation to the Board of Peace. But while India has always supported the two nation sort of formula or the two state formula for peace in West Asia, India has not taken perhaps the kind of position you would have wanted it to. Is that correct?
See, as an objective observer of Indian foreign policy, I would say to you that we are in a period of drift, of serious uncertainty. We are lost, largely because over the last few years, our policies had no clarity, no vision, no sense of purpose, no sense of direction. That has now come home to roost. The
Why do you
collapse
say
of
that?
our
Give.
diplomacy with Bangladesh, the
Hmm.
collapse of our relationship with the United States, these have totally paralyzed Jawaharlal Nehru Bhavan today, and we today have no fresh ideas, no capacity for thought as far as these serious matters are concerned. I am pleading for a reversal of this drift. That is why you have not, sometimes you were here, sometimes we were there. This absence of clarity, absence of what really matters for India's national interest, all of it guided by a moral compass, which we can then assert publicly on the global space. Say, this is what we believe in. I think that is where we should be going. This churn in world affairs is a challenge and an opportunity.
Hmm. There are those in America on the left, like Jeffrey Sachs, who argue that India should look to rebuild relations with China. Counters come from Indian Americans like Fareed Zakaria, who say that just because there is friction with America, it doesn't mean India can trust China. How do you look at the options before India? It's one thing to say mend your relations with Bangladesh. But when it comes to the big powers, right now, there aren't a lot of good choices. There seems to be a period of lonely, solitary walks ahead.
See, I would say to you that there is no shortcut or easy way forward in terms of defending and promoting our national interest. We have lost a very long time. The absence of clarity and the absence of vision in terms of where we should go has actually harmed us. I want to point out to you that the deterioration of our relations with China is largely a product of our cohabiting with the Americans so cozily and so robustly a few years ago without thinking of the consequences. Look at the Quad. We elevated the Quad from joint secretary level to minister level and announced and participated in its strategic and its security agenda directed at China. Why should we have associated ourselves with something that is part of the American agenda in the West Pacific? Why should you cross Malacca into the South China Sea and the other areas of that region just to confront China? What is the America? We have to deal with China on our own terms. We have to do that bilaterally. This fiction that was spread at that time that somehow the United States is going to be a partner of India and will provide a strategic balance against China is a fiction, as you have seen yourself. There is no sign of the American as far as our ties with China are concerned.
I would submit to you that I do think that it's a fiction that the Americans are going to come to our corner. But I also find it very difficult to trust China, given what happened in Galwan in 2020, given what happens routinely with Arunachal Pradesh, given the fact that we have had a young woman from Arunachal Pradesh recently hauled up in, transiting, I think, through Hong Kong. The Chinese have also played a very active role supporting Pakistan. So my only submission, Ambassador, is I take your point about America not being in our corner. I just find it difficult as an Indian to trust China.
Nobody is going to pretend to you that dealing with a rising power like China is going to be easy. What I am pleading is that we must engage with them with clarity and self-confidence. This short-term belief that we had from about in the second decade, and which collapsed in 2020 when we had the military confrontation, that was the mistake. That should have been avoided. We should have had a balance in terms of our relations with the Americans. We went all out. Interoperability agreements, intelligence agreements, massive number of exercises. We had more exercises with the Americans than with all the other countries put together. So, what was the message that we were giving to Beijing? That was the mistake. That should never have been allowed. If we had had sensible and sober diplomacy, we would not have reached that stage. The issues relating to Ladakh as well as Arunachal and the McMahon line, these are old issues, extremely well done, extremely well known. But why did we never have problems with the Chinese earlier? And all of a sudden we had all these. This is a consequence of some of the follies in terms of our diplomacy. It is being corrected. I agree with that. It is being corrected, and I think very slowly will move forward. There will be certain areas, certain issues where there will be setbacks, and there will be, but overall, in terms of our economic interest, in terms of our long-term political interest, we will have to engage with China and build substantial ties with China. You keep on mentioning the word trust.
Yeah.
Or no nation fully trusts another nation. Never. You had Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. Let's keep it at that. I don't like the word trust.
Fair enough.
The person is engagement, dialogue, mutual understanding, see where you can work together. And I also am a very strong supporter of the RIC, Russia, India, China. This is a very good platform where there is internal balance. Each of them depends a lot on the other, has cordial ties. This is something we should be looking at. Rather than bring in the Americans into the equation, this is where we should really put a lot of emphasis in terms of our diplomacy.
I have a question from one of our audience members responding to your comment about moral compass and foreign policy. Prasad says, Barkha would like to know from the ambassador, how would we deal with the situation when our trade policy, our foreign policy, and our moral compass contradict each other? And I mean, you know from your time in government that this happens more often than not.
See, moral compass is a guide. As you know, all of us human beings are shaped in a certain way by morality. It is that which makes us people who are human beings who engage with each other. In terms of our day-to-day profession, there are occasional compromises, depending on how serious the challenge is. But it is the moral compass that finally determines who we are, what our value is. The two are not contradictory. I would remind you that in the period of Jawaharlal Nehru, we attempted to balance strategic interests with morality. And over a period of time, there were exceptions where we sometimes had to take a position in the larger national interest, which compromised our morality. But when you look back at that era today, we took a very tough position on anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, anti-apartheid. We were able to mobilize a large number of countries together under the platform of the non-aligned movement. It mattered. It mattered. And we never lost it. People understood that from time to time, we took certain positions in our national interest, particularly with regard to our ties with the Soviet Union, because those were crucial. Do also remember that at that time during the Cold War, the Americans were very harsh with us. They armed the Pakistanis. We had to build very substantial ties with the Russians at that time, with the Soviet Union, because we had a formidable enemy at our border, constantly supported by the Americans at that time. Also remember, now you talk, let me say about the West. The West has held the business of morality, of enlightenment values, etc., for 200 years. How many of us in the global South have ever experienced Western values? The only values we have seen are extraordinary violence, robust intervention, despoliation of our economy, and the humiliation of our people.
So let me ask you in the end, when you talk about moral compass as a guiding principle, of course, there can be no objection to that. But one thing that Trump's world has revealed to us is that America's proclamations of this rules-based order, values-based democracies, values-based partnership, this is all bunkum. And Mark Carney called this out in his speech at Davos, right? How would you reset the relationship with the United States of America today, given this disorder that you yourself have forecast for the next 5 to 10 years?
The United States will remain an important partner. It has a very substantial economic foundation. It is a formidable political and military player. Engagement with the United States is very important. But that engagement that we have with them has to be underpinned on the basis that this is an unreliable country. It's a country which, in terms of clarity, is falling apart. It is unraveling. No American can ever predict to you what his president is going to do next. Even before Donald Trump, major American actions were taken without ever thinking of the day after. Look at the murder and mayhem they unleashed in Afghanistan and in Iraq and then in Libya. We are used to this, that this is a monster whose time has come. I was very happy to see that the Canadian Prime Minister finally spoke up, pointing out that the so-called Western values were shallow and not always implemented. He said not always. I would like to know when they were implemented. So this is, I am agree. But he has said this. He has done this only because he has been rebuffed and humiliated by the Americans. I wish he had mentioned this earlier when this situation had not come. But anyway, at least now some enlightenment, genuine enlightenment is coming to them. I would also like to draw this lesson for us that we must do two very important things. Number one, that we must have complete clarity of what India should be. Where should India be in the medium to long term? This lurching from day to day, from one policy and then another. Sometimes sitting here, sometimes sitting there. Not at all clarity, no clarity as to what do we want? Where should India be? And we should go beyond sloganeering. This is a slow process. Very few countries are genuinely successful. But this kind of mindless lurching should now end. Secondly, we should be clear. Now, we have said we are the voice of the global South. I have not heard that voice since the G20 ended. We should have been there in the forefront, giving voice to the global South at the International Court of Justice, at the International Criminal Court. Look at that is where our place was, and we were silent. So who is going to take this seriously? India, that is our moral compass. I accept the fact that from time to time we may not live up to it fully, but the core belief, the foundation, has to be something larger than crass national interest, crass self-interest. That is what you are seeing in the United States, and that is a very good example of what we should not be doing. We have another, you just showed the picture, Donald Trump and Netanyahu, the two most completely amoral political leaders that we have today, very close friends of each other, and absolute murderous monsters that they are.
Ambassador Talbiz Ahmed, you have correctly have the reputation of never pulling your punches, and that's exactly what you've done in this conversation as well. Very, very plain spoken, a monster whose time has come, talking about American doublespeak and hegemony and havoc wreaked in different parts of the world, cautioning India from only following the path of crass self-interest, saying that there is a larger moral compass that must and should guide our foreign policy. Always a pleasure having you on the program, sir. Thank you very much, and hope to connect with you again very soon. Thank you, sir. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.